and enjoy the ride.
Greetings to our loyal WFYL listeners around the world. Welcome back to your Philadelphia Friday, only on the Freedom Station. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in once again, because you still have the right to hear and the right to be heard. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike G. As always, with me are Philly Chris, Russ the producer, and Liberty Lee. And you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters. And you can listen to our program every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So let's be heard. I want to remind our listeners that you can participate in the free and open exchange of thoughts and ideas throughout the entire week by visiting MikeGinthemorning.com. What's it called, Philly Chris?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
How about you, Russ?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
Liberty?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
Special guest, Marlene Downing. What's it called?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
You can check out all the shenanigans that Mike G and Philly Chris are up to throughout the week, and you can check out our social media profiles. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your barber, tell your Uncle Jerry, tell anybody to listen to check us out at MikeGinthemorning.com. I also want to remind our listeners about the powerhouse lineup we've got here at the Freedom Station. Kick off your mornings with Scott Adams, bringing you the Scott Adams Show weekdays from 9 a.m. until 11. We've got Dan the Man Bongino, bringing you the Dan Bongino Show weekdays from noon till 3 p.m. We've got the headliner, intellectual giant Ben Shapiro, bringing you the Ben Shapiro Show weekdays from 3 to 5 p.m. And finally, we love having him at the Freedom Station family. We've got Michael Knowles, bringing you the Michael Knowles Show weekdays from 5 to 6 p.m. So don't forget to tune in and show him some love. I also want to remind our listeners that today's episode of the Mike G in the Morning program is brought to you by Elite Tactical Armory, your firearm storage solution in the Lehigh Valley. Do you know what a commercial armory is? Well, you should. Recently, the Pennsylvania government has recognized commercial armories as an acceptable method of off-site firearm storage. There are plenty of reasons why you might need a commercial armory. Perhaps your kid is on probation. Maybe your scorned ex-wife is accusing you again. Or perhaps you just ran out of room for all your precious babies or are going out of town. Either way, Elite Tactical Armory is the firearm storage solution for you. You can check out Elite Tactical Armory at EliteTacticalArmory.com or PACommercialArmory.com. That's EliteTacticalArmory.com or PACommercialArmory.com. I hear they're also doing the qualification course for New Jersey carry permits, so check them out, because it's important to support those who support freedom. And be sure and tell them Mike G sent you. And with that, you know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hit it, Russ.
You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
So we are here for a very special episode of the Mike G in the Morning program. We've got the anniversary of WFYL, graciously hosted by the owners of WFYL with Susan Loch. And we've got a special guest joining us for the program, Marlene Downing, right here in person. Marlene, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
And you've been on the program so many times. I think this is the first time you've actually been here in person. Is that true?
Absolutely. It's first time. I love it. So,
It is great. We're so glad that you can join us. We know that you've been up to your newer ventures more recently, and that's great to hear. Have you been local to Pennsylvania throughout the time?
Yes, so I am the Pennsylvania State Deputy State Director of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America currently. So Pennsylvania is basically my stomping grounds right now. So yeah.
And what parts of Pennsylvania do you have? Are you located more on the eastern side? Do they have you going out to Harrisburg?
So it's different areas. We do Harrisburg when there's pretty much an event or some type of large situation going on out there where we can impact things. But for the most part, I am in charge of teams over Philadelphia area, Chester County, Delaware County, and just counties in that area.
Very good. Very good. Now, we do have elections coming up. Is this a busy time of year for you?
Absolutely. We are knocking doors every day. So we have a team. Actually, the state director has a team that has knocked over 500,000 doors currently in the state of Pennsylvania. So we've been talking to voters, and voters are definitely feeling us right now. They're feeling the weight of knowing that pro-life candidates are very important to this election. So it's important that we all get out there and talk to people and our family members, everyone, to let them know how important this election is to get a great governor in place.
Did you say 500,000 doors?
Yeah.
500,000 doors. That is incredible.
Yeah, that's no exaggeration because we actually have two teams. So we have a deployment team, which is a team of students that's separate. They go all over across the nation to knock doors. They'll drop teams inside of different states that they can be influential in. So that team actually did, I believe, about 100,000 doors. But we've actually done 500 on our own in the state, our team.
That is absolutely incredible. And it looks like the people on the pro-abortion side are pushing this issue very hard coming into this election. I feel like you can't go on YouTube without seeing an ad being run that, Doug Mastriano doesn't believe in abortion, or Dr. Oz doesn't believe in abortion. How terrible of them. And you got to get out and vote so these people don't get into office. Have you noticed that as well?
That is the ticket that they're pushing. And it's a very important ticket because it's one that we're pushing as well, but for our own reasons. Of course, we believe that life is so very important, and that is the reason why we really need the right people in office to pass the right laws and to be fair. But then the other side, the pro-abortion side, are really there to say, hey, if you don't believe in abortion, get these people in office. And they believe that that's what's going to win it. But I don't think that that's the case. I think people are really interested in finding out how the economy is going to be. Crime is up in Pennsylvania, and people are concerned about that as well. So we're going to see, I believe we're going to be surprised.
So when you do talk to people about this abortion issue, are they bringing up those additional issues? Is that why you mentioned those things like crime and things like the economy, things like maybe gas being through the roof and inflation?
So I've heard that nationally, but at the doors, that's not coming up. At the doors, we are pretty much talking about what we're talking about, which is the abortion, the abortion situation that's going on right now. But overall, you can't ignore what else is going on. But
right.
Currently, that is something that's very important to people as well.
I suppose there's a reason for it now that I think about it. It's not like people would say, well, I would agree with you that abortion's not a good thing, and I would want to vote to protect the lives of the unborn. But, the economy is just doing so well right now that I would have to go with a different candidate. or crime's just so low right now. Philadelphia is the safest it's ever been, so I really got to stick with the other side.
Right.
That wouldn't quite line up, would it, Philly Chris?
I don't think so. Although Biden did say, I think, yesterday that he has lowered the gas prices since $5 a gallon when he came into office, which is completely not the case. So.
Wait a second. Gas was $9 when I came in.
Right.
Come on, man.
I mean, it was like $50 a gallon, so it's much better now.
Marlene, I know that Chris spends a lot of time in the city. He said he's noticed that there are a lot of billboards that are pro-abortion going in right now, leading this election. Didn't you say that, Chris?
Yeah. They're, those and a few other, distinct statements they're making. I think it says like defend choice or protect choice, vote Democrat.
There's another one they just threw up all over the place. I know you sent it to me. John sent it to me. Said, stop the racists vote. So
Stop the racists.
That's a total oxymoron right there. In the Black communities, we know that the abortion rate is up in Black communities. So who's racist here if we want to kill babies?
Right. Right. I heard a statistic that more Black babies are aborted every year in New York City than born alive.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
It's an absolute shame.
Total.
And how is there not more outrage over that?
I think culturally, I think people have adopted this theory that it's better to abort. not even thinking about the life that they're taking away. They're actually looking at their situation, and because it's a cultural acceptance, they've just adopted that as their truth.
There was that politician, I think he was in Georgia, who said something along the lines of kill him now or kill him later. I don't know if you remember that. This is absolutely heartbreaking.
All of it's heartbreaking. I just can't believe that some of the things that have been said. It's hard. It's hard to deal with a society that really believes that the solution is death. I mean, there's so many more solutions that we could be thinking about that we could have fixed a very long time ago had we not had the only solution to be death, so.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's really hard.
We've spoken to you a lot about your work over the years and your different positions and the impact that you've had on the community. I don't think we've ever spoken to you much about your journey, though. I think we've kind of glossed over that. Now, where did you grow up, Marlene?
So I grew up partially in Philadelphia. I was born in, actually at University Hospital, Pennsylvania Hospital. And, I lived in the hood. I lived on Reinhardt Street, 60th and Reinhardt. And so I don't know if you know about that area, but it wasn't the best. And then, my parents, they wanted a better life for us. So they moved us to Maryland after I think it was like 12 when I was, moved. And it was a good thing because it took me out of that environment and gave me a different perspective.
What part of Maryland?
Eastern Shore. So that was
over there, I'm not too familiar. What kind of surroundings did you have over there?
Very rural.
Really?
So it was,
you're a country gal.
We lived on a street called Easy Street.
Okay.
And I could not wait. As soon as I graduated high school, I was out. I was like, okay, I'm coming back to Philly. But in between that time, I actually came back to Philadelphia to visit my aunt and my cousins. So I write about that in my book, which you guys haven't read yet because I know you haven't.
What did you love about Philadelphia that kept drawing you back?
It was just, my cousins, my family, when you're younger, that's all really that you care about. When my parents moved us, they moved us, it was just me and my brother, and it was really not a lot to do. So I was like so intrigued by Philadelphia and, I always wanted to come back. So came back. I lived in Philadelphia when I graduated high school. I went to Temple and, I ended up getting pregnant in college, and I had a miscarriage, and it was really hard. So it kind of made my life a little different and kind of spiraled me downward. But thank God that God brought me back up. But it was a tough
something that's
journey.
very tough to go through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with people every day, dealing with abortion today, do you ever think back to that experience? Because when you lose a pregnancy through a miscarriage, you're every bit connected to that baby. Right? That is 100% a baby. You 100% lost your baby, your unborn child. Do you ever think back to that? And I know it's probably not something you want to dwell on or anything. It's
part of my testimony that I talk about. So, that's one of the issues that happened. But when you go through trauma, it's almost like, and it was so much more trauma in my life prior to the miscarriage, but the miscarriage really was hard because I ended up having, complications from the fact that they didn't do it the correct way, like removing, just.
What do they call it? DNR or something?
Yeah, DNC.
DNC.
So, I ended up getting really sick.
Do not resuscitate us.
Right. I had to go to the hospital and be admitted, just to, get myself back together. And then from there, I ended up having to leave school because because I was so sick, my roommate could not foot the bill of us living off campus. I lived on 17th and Diamond at that time. And so I ended up working and just, partying and just doing like all kinds of things that I shouldn't have been doing. And I had 2 abortions. So my life, just wasn't going very well, but I started going to church, and that was where I kind of gained my understanding of the Lord and kind of, even though I wasn't going all the time, I used that as something that helped me get through the pain that I was going through.
That seems to put you in a different place to witness to these people having been there, right? Because
Absolutely.
It's one thing for, an old guy like me or Philly Chris to talk to people about it. And it's like, how the heck would you possibly understand?
Yeah.
But somebody like you who's been there, you're coming from a different place when you have these discussions. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. So when I actually got to talk to these women, it was almost like I was talking to myself, because when you're in that situation where you feel like you should have an abortion or you're thinking about having an abortion, it's all about fear. It's all about, what is it that I can do for this child because I don't know how to raise a child. Like all of these things, is the not husband, but your boyfriend at the time, is he going to be with you, or is this going to, just be something that you can handle as a young person? And so I went through all of that when I had the abortions in the past. And again, it was also culture. It was me thinking that it was okay because nobody had told me anything different. But it was a time that I had as an encounter when I went on a march. I went on actually a march with my church. So I had these abortions and I changed my life. I surrendered to God. I also surrendered myself to God. So I said that, my life was going to be a life of purity, changing my life completely. And I went to this march, and the march was, marching down from Broad Street to City Hall. And we had signs, and the signs, were of aborted babies, just showing the people in North Philadelphia that this is actually what abortion is, because people don't really want to see the gruesome details of it. And nobody wants to see that, but it's the reality of it.
Does it make it easier for them if they don't have to see that?
Yeah. I mean, everybody wants
sight,
to
out of mind.
turn the page. But, when I left there on the way back, God, actually spoke to me and said that I would see my children in heaven.
That's
amazing. There's a whole thing, a whole story to this and a whole testimony. I just didn't want to take this time to do the whole testimony, but there is a whole story behind it. But, because God showed me that, because I know that, I heard from him, there's nothing that anybody can say to say that it's right, that life doesn't start at conception, and that everybody has a purpose. So, that's why I do what I do, and that's really how God constructed my life from there.
Did you not feel ready to be a parent the first time around when you had the miscarriage, because you had this uncertainty, and the second and third time you didn't feel ready that time either?
I felt ready.
Oh, you did feel ready.
It was weird because at that time I was 18. I was in college, and even at that time, I knew that the person that I had been with would not be involved. But I felt ready, but I still wasn't treating it as if I was ready. I still went on about my life partying, and so it was almost like I was in denial, but I did not want to have an abortion. I wasn't thinking on that line.
Wow.
So
did that ever cross your mind when you were in this position where you are getting ready to have these other abortions? Did you think back to that first time? Did that have any impact on you?
No, it's almost like you repress or suppress those feelings.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what happened to me with even the abortions. For a while, I didn't even think about it. I just went on about my life. And I thought, after the abortions, I thought that I could, just not think about it and just keep going on. And that wasn't the case,
So you're terrified, and because of what you're hearing from other people in society and the community and the culture, you sort of convince yourself that it's okay and that this is normal.
It's a normal thing.
That right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like your parents cared enough to try to move you guys to Maryland. Were they involved with your life at that point in time?
They were involved. But the difference between my parents and I guess how I would be with my daughter is that they were more liberal. So even in a position that that they were in, like they were, how can I explain them? They were the type of parents, like when I was younger and getting involved, I guess, sexually, they never said anything. Where I'd be like, okay, you know, why is this happening? You know, what are you know, just having that conversation with your children. Like they never had that with me. And it was okay. Whatever I wanted to do was like the liberal type situation that I grew up in. So I think that, you know, it's important to let your child know that their body is a temple and that purity matters. And so that's part of, you know, my ministry as well, as I talk to kids and youth about purity and abstinence.
And you have kids of your own, right?
Yeah, I wish it worked, but it didn't. But I love them. So I have a 12-year-old that I'm still keeping her. Hopefully, you know, hopefully I can keep her on the right track. But I have a daughter, and she has a daughter. So I'm a grandmother.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. My granddaughter is, she's something. She's awesome.
I wouldn't look at you and think grandmother. That's not
No.
I'm a grandmama, but you know what she calls me? So my daughters say, you know, who's that? And she'll call my other daughter Nana, and then she's like, who am I? And she's like, Mom. And she said, and that's grandmom. She was like, Drum. She calls me Drum. I don't know.
Okay.
Drum. I'm Drum.
Yeah, that's cool. Drum work.
Then you're not a grandmother.
No, I'm just Drum.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
So if you have
cute,
anybody who's getting ready for this election and they see all the stuff that's going on, what would you have to say to them? What are the kinds of things that you say to people when you get to their door and you're sort of like, I don't want to say cold calling because you're not calling, you're cold talking to them face to face.
Yeah. So we listen to people at the door. That's the strategy that I like to have when I do go, because we have a team of people that go out.
Sure.
But for the most part, people want to be heard, because not everybody is like on the straight and narrow where they think, okay, I'm just pro-abortion and that's it, or I'm just pro-life and that's it. Some people have exceptions if they're pro-life, which to me, it's not, you know, really pro-life, but if they do consider themselves pro-life, if they have an exception. And then also people that are pro-abortion, they believe in limits. But they don't know that the candidates that are running now, they don't believe in any limits. They believe that abortion should happen up until birth without parental consent, and also paid for it by taxpayers. Taxpayers don't want to pay for this. So those are the things, the conversations that we're having at the door, and we're actually listening to their views, and they're telling us, you know, just why they feel that way. And we're able to interject the truth to them and kind of give them another outlook. So when they close the door, even if they don't really say it to us, they're with themselves after that.
Do you think that sometimes the people lean on the exceptions as sort of a misdirection play, so to speak? Because it sounds a lot like when they hammer on people who are against abortion, they'll say like, well, what if it's going to kill the mom now? Abortion's health care and you're not letting the mom live and the mom's going to die. And even if you were to say, okay, let's suppose you make an exception, they're not going to be happy with that, right? What they want is abortion at will for convenience purposes. And unless they get abortion for whatever reason, they're really not going to be happy, are they?
So I tell people, I mean, when I go to speak, a lot of times I talk about the fact that 95% of abortions are elective, which means that they know exactly why they're doing it. It's not for a fetal anomaly. It's not for, rape or incest. That's about 2%. But it's 95%. You're going because of the reasons that I went when I had my abortion, and that's, that's what it is. So why don't we just say what it is?
Right.
And then if that's still your stance on it, then say that, but don't always use something to make it sound like, oh, well, what if somebody's raped? Well, hopefully that doesn't happen, but 95% of the people that are getting abortions are not raped.
Yeah, so
Let's just
could we
talk
at
about
least
that.
agree that this shouldn't be okay?
Right.
Right? Could we agree that 95% of them shouldn't be okay?
Right.
But they wouldn't agree to that, I think, in most instances.
Yeah.
And do you think that sometimes when people point to that stuff, I hear all the time, abortion is healthcare. I saw somebody made a cake one time. I think you said it was, you may have said it was
who
Miley
was that?
Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, and said abortion is just heartbreaking. Now, heartbreaking makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
But when they go to that all the time, I think that there's a misunderstanding for the pro-abortion people as to what an abortion is, because when your friend the physician came on, she was talking about exactly what would happen in those situations, and it is really not an abortion, is it?
No.
It's just a different procedure.
Wait, when there's
a situation where the
fetal
life the life of the mother is in
Right.
danger, and those rare instances, it's really not an abortion what takes place
Right.
in order to fix that.
So it can be an abortion is what can happen. Like they can actually take the baby out by dismembering the baby. That's what I remember her saying. And that's what, like, when anytime we're together, that's what she tells people when they ask that question. But there's another way to do it. So you can actually induce the labor, which can happen through, an induction, which can also cause the baby to be birthed. And then that mother can have time with that baby before it passes away, or if it's passed before the baby is born, then, it's something that she can kind of live with instead of just dismembering the child. You don't have to do that, is what she's saying.
And you don't have to
It's not necessary.
intentionally end the life.
Right.
Understood. Well, why don't we go ahead and we'll grab one of our first guests here. And Marlene, if you have time and you're willing to stick around, we'd love to have you with us throughout the duration of the program. For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So we've got a special guest joining us here from the anniversary party. We've got Rita joining us. Rita, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
It's great to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am the founder and executive director of an organization called Life Turning Point of Philadelphia.
Wow.
And what we do at Life Turning Point of Philadelphia is we provide an 18-month Christian transitional housing program for homeless women and children and women that are at risk pregnancy.
That is absolutely amazing. Chris has been going out into Kensington and meeting homeless people and hearing their stories. I'm sure you hear heartbreaking things all the time.
We do. But the great thing is that we give them the hope of Jesus Christ. So that's the awesome thing. There's always hope in him. So
that's amazing. How long have you been doing this?
Wow. About 23 years.
23 years.
23 years. Yeah. 20 years under another organization and then now starting up my own. So yeah, it's been 23 years total.
That's incredible. You must be exhausted.
It can be.
That's a business that never slows down. It's not like, well, there's a recession, so business is slow. It doesn't happen like that.
No, it does not. No, it actually picks up.
It picks up.
In times like these, yes.
Wow. So you're seeing an uptick right now?
Oh, we are. We have a waiting list actually to get into our home.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So with your position and seeing these people coming in, you've got a different look than most other people, because some people might watch the news and CNN and say, okay, well, we think the economy is really not as bad as we might think it is right now.
Right.
But you see the real stuff. You see people coming in and they've got no place to live.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What prompted you to get into this 23 years ago?
Oh, wow. That's a long story. I'll try to make it short, but I worked for the city for about 9.5 years, and I was an assistant purchasing agent. And one day I was in the office window, just kind of standing there looking out over the Love Park, and I'm seeing people walking down the street, and they look like zombies. And I remember looking and saying, Lord, like, is this what you have for me? And I clearly heard the voice of the Lord say, I'm going to use you. There's been very few times that I've clearly heard the voice of the Lord. And that was one of those times. And I just said, okay, had no idea what that meant, but I just said, okay. Fast forward a couple months later, my office moved and I was in my cubicle and I just felt like the Holy Spirit was telling me to start taking stuff home. So I started taking things home out of my cubicle, and I spoke with my spiritual mom about it. And I told her what was going on. And she says, I think the Lord might be calling you off your job. I had been there for 9.5 years working for the city as an assistant purchasing agent.
And when you work for the city, you've been there 9.5 years. You've built up.
I was about to vest in my pension.
Right.
I was. Wow. And so long story short, I sought the Lord in fasting and prayer. And next thing I know, he called me off the job. So I quit my job. I sold my stuff. And I actually moved into the facility that I now direct.
Wow, that's amazing.
I went in as a full-time missionary. And
did people think you were crazy? Because that's sort of akin to Noah building the boat and
they still do.
A flood, right?
Yeah, they did. And it's like, first you're talking all this Jesus stuff. Now you're saying God said. Now you quit your job. Now you're moving into a facility. What is wrong with you? But I started there actually as a volunteer missionary. As a house parent. I did that for a year. And then I left. I was asked to direct another program. So I went to another program, directed that. And then the organization called me back. And so I went back and became director for them. And in 2018, we got a new CEO. And he decided that they no longer wanted to do a program for homeless women and children. And he gave me 1 month. This is pre-COVID. 1 month to shut the facility down.
Shut it down.
And put all the families
How's that
out.
being a CEO of the facility? I don't understand.
It was
why would they shut it down? What were their plans to do otherwise?
I don't know.
Doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah. Very difficult situation. But nonetheless, there were some former board members that heard about what happened, and they approached me and said, hey, if we can help you get this property back, would you want to keep the ministry going? And I said, yes. And by the grace of God, there was one man that came through and he bought the property for us and said, I'm going to give you this property for $1 a month to do your ministry for eternity. All you have to do is raise your own operating expenses.
Wow.
And so that's how Life Turning Point in Philadelphia was birthed. It was birthed out of the shutdown of one program. People got together, wanted to see the ministry continue, and so we reopened.
That's incredible. That guy sounds like a really amazing person.
He is,
right?
he is wonderful.
One special dude right there.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, that would be a situation when the CEO comes in and says, hey, we're calling it quits. It's curtains for you folks. You must have been devastated because this is 20 years worth of work for you.
Yeah, it was pretty devastating. Yeah. And when I had to tell the moms, it was traumatic.
Did you believe, and I know this is probably easier said than done, but in that moment, did you believe that God was going to make a way for you to continue on?
I had no idea. We were actually fighting to keep it open under the current organization. Had no idea that God was going to use this shutdown to birth this ministry.
Wow.
So, it was pretty incredible.
How many women are in the facility?
We can take 9 families.
Oh, 9 families. Okay.
Yep, 9 moms with up to 4 kids apiece.
What are their situations usually like when they come to you?
So they come from couch surfing. A lot of times they got pregnant, and mom said, hey, you can't stay here. And they started couch surfing. Women that were living with guys and the guy put them out. Some women may come out of an abusive situation. So various situations that women come to us. Yeah. And they're with us for 18 months.
18 months.
Now, are the people who come in, are they believers to begin with, or?
A lot of them are churched. I'll say that. This is America, so most people are churched. So a lot of them are churched, but may not necessarily be born again.
Gotcha.
So, and again, it is an 18-month Christian discipleship program, so they don't have to be Christian to come in. We take women that are Muslim, all faiths, we don't discriminate in who we'll take in, but they do have to be open to biblical teaching. All of our classes are taught straight from the Bible.
And you'll expose them to it, right?
Absolutely.
You said your spiritual mom, is that what you said?
Yes. This was many years ago.
What's a spiritual mom?
So she was like my mother in the faith, basically. It's like my spiritual mentor. So
Gotcha.
She helped me to grow in the Lord, and, she would pray with me and give me, Christian guidance, biblical guidance. Yeah. So she was like a mother to me in the faith. Yeah.
And were you raised in the church, or is this something you came into?
I was not raised in the church, no. Well, I was raised Catholic, and I went to church every once in a while. Yeah. But I gave my life to the Lord.
Catholic's different ballgame.
Yeah, it is. But I gave my life to the Lord when I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. How did that happen?
Oh, wow. Another loaded question.
Is that a long story?
Yeah.
Marlene, do you have a spiritual mom as well?
I had a spiritual father that was
A spiritual
Pastor
father.
Herb Lusk,
So you
and
got a
he just
spiritual
passed
father.
away.
You got a spiritual mother. I'm a spiritual orphan.
I have a spiritual brother.
There are no orphans in Christ. No, you're
spiritual
right.
brother.
I got a spiritual brother.
I'll be you guys' spiritual mom.
Thank you.
Like,
This just made the whole night worth it.
You're definitely not old enough to be Billy Chris's spiritual mom.
there's no age in the spirit, so yes, I
Thank
can.
you. See, Marlene has my back. I appreciate that, mother.
But Rita used to help us at the Hope Center.
I
She was
did.
an amazing, like she's always been an amazing resource. So, yeah, and I've been through her journey with her and praying with her, and she's just, I'm so glad that everything worked out, and
Amen.
you know, it's just beautiful that we're sitting here right now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing too. It's amazing to me that you actually took
you.
that leap of faith and put yourself in a
Yeah.
situation financially where you were jeopardizing your own, well-being for others. I think that's amazing. I think
if
that's just so
people-
lacking right now.
If people wanted to contribute who are listening or who are watching right now, how could they do that?
So we have a website, and it's ltpphilly.org. That's ltpphilly.org. They can also call our office at 215-826-7810. That's 215-826-7810.
That's great. Well, don't be a bum. Go ahead and check out the website and contribute. Rita, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you
Thank
for
you
joining
so
us.
much for having me. This was great.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So we've got another special guest with us here today. Bella, haven't seen you in about a year, have we?
I know. I miss seeing you all. How have you all been?
We've been fantastic.
I
Plugging
can
along
see
with the
that.
show.
I can see that.
We've got a
see
special
you.
guest joining us today, Marlene Downing.
Hey, man, how are you?
With Susan B.
I'm good.
Anthony List, pro-life advocate. So, Bella, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to this year?
Well, I've been trying to create more content on YouTube.
Yes, I've seen your videos.
Okay. So I like it because I think YouTube is a very common platform. I mean, till the time they not let you talk, but
Yeah, there's that whole side of YouTube.
We've had that happen a couple of
We're
times.
familiar with that.
so, but for the time zone difference, I think it's a very easy platform to navigate, easy to upload, easy to create content.
And so what kind of content have you been creating lately?
I've been talking on few topics on who is man, what is man's identity as someone who knows God, how knowing God transforms a man inside out. You know, a lot of times with all these upheaval and things happening, we try to focus on the exterior, try to change the behavior of a person. But, you know, you can really see it's not really helping. So I try to focus on how a man can be connected to God and through that process bring an internal change, and then internal change affects his external behavior, and then his family, society. So, and I think knowing that heart-mind connection has really helped. So,
Do you think that society has changed over the last, I don't know, several decades, but it seems to have gotten worse over the last few years with pushing God aside and almost saying that God is a bad thing, right? Stay away from God, stay away from that sort of thing. Do you think that it's impacted our society negatively as a whole?
it has, but also if you read the Bible, it says, as in the days of Noah, it would be in the last days. So in a way, we know it's kind of replicating how things were before. So in that gives hope. So you don't have to be disheartened. Like you don't want to say society is becoming worse and worse. Society will be worse because people are going to discount to the value of God. So it is an inevitable outcome of people rejecting and not wanting God. But then people are also not seeing what God is doing through people like you and I who believe in God, who believe in the power of media to influence and impact people. So we are seeing changes, but it is only as much as it is obvious as we promote it. The more believers and Christians and people who know God publicize the positive changes that are happening. And if we fail to do that, the people are going to only see the negative.
Right.
You know, as soon as you scroll the paper, you know, or your cell phone in the morning, it's always a negative news.
Right.
Right? So people are going to think, oh, look at the world, it's going worse. No, there's another side that is happening.
That's true.
So,
That is true.
So I'm very appreciative of the work you people do. You're taking the time
Thank you.
to showcase the good things, right?
Trying.
Yes.
We try. There's
What
plenty
would
of bad
you say,
things
right?
to focus
Absolutely.
on. Marlene,
Yeah.
that's big for you, right?
Absolutely,
Having
because
told
I've
success
been in
stories.
the media several times this year, and I've seen how they switch things and turn things. So to have people speak the truth is so important,
Yes.
you know, because
yeah.
we know that sometimes, you know, the twisting and the turning can take away the truth of
Very
a
true.
situation.
Well, they want people to believe that pro-life people are dangerous, right?
Right.
And that we're out there and throwing tomatoes at women walking into these clinics and doing violent things even,
Exactly.
right? And so they see somebody like you who's coming from a place of love and actually changing lives.
Right.
And you get that out there, and that's a beautiful thing when it actually makes it out there. 'Cause
When it makes it.
it doesn't quite fit the agenda,
Yeah.
the narrative, right?
Right. And it's sad because even the reporters that I've seen, they want to tell the story in that way because, you know, it's hard not to be touched when you come into contact with something that is pure. But, you know, they have an agenda to go by. So their hands are kind of tied. So I feel really bad for the reporters sometimes
Sure.
and the journalists.
Yeah. Very lost people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need to
Bella.
stand up to it, though. They just don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what you're doing, Bella, by
Right.
putting these videos out one by one, right? Is you're getting that message out there. What you said reminded me of something I heard recently. There's a pastor, Ray Comfort, and he was talking about the mark of the beast because now that we see this chip technology coming out, some companies are having people put chips in their bodies and things of that nature. Even Elon Musk coming out with that Neuralink that will be sewed into the brain. And so people are getting more and more concerned. Are we in the end times? This is the mark of the beast. And what Ray was talking about is that we already know the ending, like you said. We already know what's going
We
to
know the
happen.
last chapter.
We know the last chapter, and it's almost like watching a football game that's already happened. You know your favorite team wins the Super Bowl. So when you watch it 10 years later, no matter how close the game is, and even if your team looks like they're about to lose, you know how it ends. So you feel a different kind of peace. And if you know how this ends, and you know what to expect, I think people would be a lot more peaceful, wouldn't they?
Oh, definitely. In the world, you will face tribulations, but be of cheer, for I have overcome the world, right? So knowing that even in turbulent times, you can get to the other side in a safe way because somebody else is sojourning this place alongside of you, right? That gives confidence. But what happens more often, we are also reactive. Even though we believe in God, we still are, intimidated or influenced by what we see with the five senses.
Sure.
And we end up reacting the very same way. I think that's when going back to the word, using that as an anchor will stabilize you, right?
Sure. And that's the problem without it, right? If you push it to the side, because a lot of people, like I keep going to the last few decades, in my mind, there's a big difference in this country when they took prayer out of schools. But when you look at the way society has changed, a lot of people right now, they would tell you, well, you don't need to be a Christian to be a good person, right? You can know right from wrong and you do the right thing and be a good person. You hear a whole lot of this these days. Just be a good person. But none of us are good persons, right? Naturally, that's not the way it works. And on top of that, who's the ultimate arbiter as to what is good versus what is not good? And if you take God out of the equation, you take the Bible out of the equation, it's every man for himself. Anybody can decide anything. It's completely subjective. Isn't that so?
No, it's become a fad to just use just one key phrase, be kind, be good. And you're very right. What is goodness?
Right.
Right? So I always say, if you go to a tribal place, killing another person is being good.
Right. That's very true.
Because you're trying to establish justice, right? So,
It depends on the local rules. Yeah, I guess you're right.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like you said,
It's all relative.
it is a relative thing.
Yeah, good is very subjective.
Subjective, right.
And that's the problem when you don't have that anchor, as you said. I love the way you called it an anchor. So do you recommend that people every day do something to sort of go back to the word or something like that? You know, I've seen some of your videos that very put you in a very good mood after you listen to them and everything like that. You have a good way of doing that. I think that's probably a good thing for people to do. Just check out one of your videos a day, right, and keep that in their head. Have you ever suggested that to anybody?
Yeah, go to Bella Victor Ministries on YouTube or online, or minutewithamaster.com. So I create 1 minute content.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If people look at the 1 minute stuff, I mean, how could you not have a minute, right?
Right.
I think that's right. I think just calming yourself, and whose voice will you listen? Is it the voice of the world or the voice of God who is within you? God is inside of you. All you need to just silence yourself.
You make me feel bad. I was going to say the voice of Bella. You were saying the voice of God.
You do have a very soothing
very
voice.
soothing
Yeah, very
voice.
soothing.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, I interrupted.
That's a good one. So, whose voice? You know, because Jesus says, "My sheep can hear my voice," right? So we are a sheep, and we are capable. Just that the voice outside is louder, so we are not able to listen, right?
So many voices now.
Exactly, so many voices. And the thing is, we are not winning in this game. If you're listening all these voices, can you see the level of anxiety and, you know,
it's crazy.
Turbulence within a man that, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's
who
really
hasn't
crazy.
been negatively impacted the past few years.
Right.
Yeah.
So
where do you see this going, Bella? Where do you think we'll be in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you think's going to happen?
I believe in the power of the church. I think we need to up the game. I think churches have to be involved in media ministry like this. And like you said, prayer, you know, give a 1-800 number, you know, and advertise, call in the church if you have a prayer need. And then, you know, when they call and give them a verse, Bible verse that they can, you know, anchor in.
Sure.
So the more we up our game, the more that we can enable people to be on top of things. Our voice should be louder than...
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you said that, because when I was younger and still trying to find my way with Christ, I used to love TBN. And I did not know, and I wasn't like fully surrendered, but I knew that when I turned on that channel, there was something different about that broadcast, and it really did something for me to see the pastors and everybody on there. So it spoke to me. So you're right. We really need something like that for modern day times.
No, it's very interesting. You said TBN. My kids, they're all grown up. I don't watch much of TBN because different channels, it's hard to get. But a lot of them still believe. I mean, remember what they saw. I would just play it in the backdrop. They still remember some of the preachers. Oh, that's Jensen Franklin, or this is, you know, Billy Graham, or, you know, they're able to point out and remember that. And I think if churches can fund ministries like this, support people who are on air, right? It's a win-win situation for the, you know,
I agree.
For both the group.
Definitely.
And sometimes it's just one party that is trying to be active. They have the content, but then you don't have the resource. How can you match the resource and the content? People are content creators,
That's a good
right?
point. Yeah, that's a tough thing right now.
Oh, it sounds like you also gave your children that foundation by putting them around that, right? And that's important. Get them while they're young and instill that in them. Sow those seeds, right?
Right.
So you have that later on in life. Yeah. Because a lot of folks don't have that, you know?
Right. Good point. Yeah.
We have a problem in this country, I think, with parents not being involved enough. And we see what happens when those kids get older, unfortunately.
And I think parents even don't know how to be involved, because now the content is in the cell phone. You can be playing the TV in the background. Nobody cares now, because this has more attraction than the big screen. but for the day of sports, maybe, right?
Right.
So,
Exactly. Sports trumps all.
right.
Yeah, it sure does. Marlene, how long have you been a pro-life activist?
So I would say 5 years, at least 5 years. So 5 plus.
So even in that period of time, have you seen any kind of shift in attitude among the public at large, the general population?
It's hard to say.
Because it seems like everything's changing so fast.
Seems like it's gotten worse, in my opinion, but I don't know for sure.
It seems like we're seeing rapid changes, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are reactive. I'm sorry.
Bella,
like Bella was saying, people are reactive. So, with the turning of Roe versus Wade, people, of course, will react in a certain way. And that way is normally how things are shown in the media, because they don't really get to talk to people like myself or people who have gone through it, or people that are doing the work on the ground, like the pregnancy centers that are offering so much help, like Rita, offering help with the maternity homes and just different things that are available and resources. They don't know about these things. Right. And there's not a lot of cover given to those places. So it kind of lets people just have their own opinion in the wrong direction. But that's where our voice comes in. We have to just keep talking about it. So
how many people that you've dealt with were completely not open to Christianity at all?
When you say that, are you talking about when I was at the pregnancy center counseling women?
Yeah, or even knocking on doors. I'm just saying because you have a lot of interactions with people,
right?
In both of your, both of the positions that you've held, right?
Yes. So they don't. It's so weird because when you speak of Christianity and being pro-life, that does go hand in hand. But people don't look at that nowadays.
Gotcha.
They're looking at it as a political thing.
Gotcha.
And it's not political. This is all about life and Christ. And, what is Christ? Christ is life. He's given us life. So it's a total different thing that people are kind of taking out of context.
I have seen a shift lately where there are more people who are non-Christians but Republican coming out there. And it's this strange thing because people who are Republican might look at that and say, oh, great, we're getting more people to think like us. But they're also at the same time putting out non-Christian or sometimes, I don't know if anti-Christian is the word, but
it's atheist. Well,
atheist,
so
right?
there's an atheist group that is out, and there's a leader of the atheist group that actually showed up at one of the rallies that we had recently, and she's always at the different places, just around. She's a beautiful girl, just really, really a sweet woman. And I guess ultimately when I think of that, like originally my mind was like, how can you be atheist and be pro-life and stand for pro-life and, and then we embrace this and, everything's on the same platform. And in my mind, that's what I was thinking, because my mind is puny. But God wants to save her too.
Sure.
So when she's in these environments, what are you surrounded by? Nothing but Christians, nothing but people who are conservative and thinking in conservative ways. And from the public's aspect, it might be viewed as something that can kind of change the way people think. Well, you don't have to be Christian in order to be pro-life. Well, do I have to believe in Jesus? But that's our responsibility. God wants to save her. And that's really how I'm looking at it now versus how I was looking at it before.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to a certain extent, you'd hope that even non-Christians don't want to kill babies, right?
True.
You would hope.
Maybe I just don't think it's okay to kill a baby.
Yeah.
But I get where you're coming from. Yeah. Bella, what would you say to somebody who's an atheist and they're having a hard time coming to grips with the idea that there's this superior being in God? Have you dealt with atheists before? Have you had these discussions before?
Yeah. I take them back to what they're searching for in life. Last week, I had somebody come to my office and he was talking about yoga. And, by trying to say yoga is connected with the Hindu religion. So he was trying to say that, it still connects to some kind of a superpower that they're trying to connect or think about. So then we're trying to differentiate between what a living God and the God that he is visualizing. And he ended up saying from his own mouth, he said, a lot of the movements that come about in yoga, it comes out of the evil spirit. Because he said a lot of the movements, I think the yoga has some different kind of stretching and other stuff. He said they come from the movement of the evil spirit. And then I was trying to differentiate between what evil spirit does. The evil spirit can never have the good of you. It'll always destroy your being. It will take away your the worth or the value or the dignity of a man. Whereas if you bring God in, God, we were created in the image of God. And when God sent his son, Jesus, it was to restore the dignity of mankind, right? So when you begin to say that there is a value and a dignity to the essence of a person's being, and that's what God does, when you unite with God, actually from being a base level person, you're actually getting closer to divinity. Because when you have the Spirit of God in you, you're more divine than bovine, right? Right? So when I was able to explain that difference, I could visibly see a shift in his thinking. What is the essence of saying that I believe in God? It is essentially you're uniting yourself with the superior God, and you're elevating yourself to a more dignified status.
And yoga is becoming more and more mainstream. I don't think people think anything of it in that sense, though, right?
Not
they just
at
figure
all.
this is a good exercise routine. It's a good stretching routine.
That is what deception is. Deception is subverting the truth. Not essentially saying what it really represents and trying to sugarcoat it.
I'll tell you this. When I played college baseball, they made all of the pitchers go and do yoga for a little bit. Yeah. I didn't know any different. I'm a 19-year-old ball player. Like, yeah, whatever. We'll stretch. Great. But you hear these things and it's really connected to something at a deeper level. It's no good, right? Maybe there should be some kind of a Christian stretching routine or something like that.
There are some girls who, on my one Bible study group, they're trying to do that, but I don't know.
They
but
just
also,
call it like a Christian stretching routine?
It's like Christian stretching.
It's called This Is Not Yoga.
But it's big, though. What she's saying is hitting on a point with this day and age, because there's like the sage. People just think, it's just something, And
they think it's not a big deal, right?
They think it's not. And also like the horoscopes.
And the crystals.
Everybody's like, what are you? You're a Virgo. It's the big thing. Crystals. And I was just like...
Yeah, I guess there are all kinds of ways to let evil in, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of new age things that are happening now that just don't honor God at all, and it leads people further away. And then they start inviting things to themselves. They don't even know that by burning sage, you're not propelling demons. You're inviting them to yourself.
Burning sage?
Yeah, people burn sage because they think that it's a way to ward off demons. But you pray, get in your secret place and pray.
What about that's vampires? Right?
Silver and wooden stakes.
But that's an interesting topic. The different things that we're seeing introduced into common society.
Yeah.
That are unpopular topic here. How about Halloween, right? We just had Halloween. There's probably a lot of bad things that happen through Halloween where people are going down the wrong roads, right?
I've never seen so many people in this society that say that they love God, like on their Instagram accounts and things like that. They love God first, and then you look at a profile, not judging, but it's hard to, and it's like, Virgo, Sagittarius. I'm like, but everybody's on their own journey, so it's not their time yet. I don't know, but
I think it has a lot to do with education as well, because you have to have leaders that are willing to tell the truth and talk about these things from the pulpit, because those things sometimes aren't spoken of, and people are just left up to their own knowledge when you can kind of let people know, okay, these things are happening. Let's address it. And even with the topic of abortion, nobody's, talking about that enough to the people that are in the pews because they don't know that these women are sitting in their pews.
Huh.
Right.
What do you think about Halloween, Marlene?
Halloween, I don't celebrate it, but let me tell you, it's hard to tell my children not to.
Sure.
So my youngest daughter, I told her no, absolutely no. My oldest daughter, since she's grown, she dressed my granddaughter up as a little cat. But you have to say, the cutest little cat ever. She didn't go trick or treating, but I was just like, what do I do here? Like, do I be like, no, you can't dress her up like a cat? So basically, she knows how I feel about it. So I guess that was enough.
Yeah.
You know.
What about you, Bella? What do you think about Halloween?
Well, I think the story or the origin of Halloween is not something. It's an extreme, right? It's a day where they sacrificed people, right? So it's been diluted. We're trying to create another version of what the day is.
Sure.
Make it look like a costume day or a candy day. But the essence of it has been the same. How we take a stand depends on what we believe truth is. And I think it differs from family to family.
Right. Sacrificing people is bad, okay?
I'd like to pipe in here and say that sacrificing people's bad.
I'm on board with that, boys.
Definitely bad.
No sacrificing people. But that because they've added the costumes and the candy, like Marlene said, it's always like if you say no, they're like, well, what kind of person are you? What's wrong with you? What kind of person doesn't like costumes and candy?
I don't. Costumes and candy are bad.
I'll tell you this: the church I grew up in, there were no dice on Halloween. They took us to Chuck E. Cheese. We also had some severe gang violence problems in my neighborhood growing up.
Okay.
That would come out on Halloween, but they would take us to Chuck E. Cheese on Halloween because everybody else was out trick-or-treating or whatever. But then I remember going with my cousin to a Catholic church, and at the Catholic church, the priest basically just said, it used to mean something else, and now it's just about costumes and candy, so do what you want to do, pretty much.
Or they have the churches with the trunk or treat parties. Like trunk or treat.
Yeah.
So is that like
get some better candy
you
out of the
dress
trunk.
up dress up like Bible characters, or
Not, you don't have to. I've seen one of our friends went to one and they dress them up in like little innocent, kind of like the cat or something like that, and they do like a trunk or treat at the churches.
That's interesting, but if you're doing it on the same day, is it still stemming out of the same principle?
It is.
You
That's
know?
what we were saying. It's just not even.
It's like,
I think most people now don't even know the history of it, really.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
Did you know that, Chris?
I mean, I've heard it before, sure, but I think most people you talk to nowadays would question you, like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
I used to own a couple of videos on the origin, and I would invite some people to watch it. So once, like you said, people are educated, then you would, stay away from it.
Right.
So,
They kind of wash history.
Once you start really listening to stuff, you kind of start looking at everything. Like recently, I haven't listened to some of my music that I used to listen to. And once you go down that road, it's like hard to unhear things. Some of the shows I was watching, like Stranger Things, is so popular, and I started seeing like so many like kind of like demonic characters, and I just stopped midway. I was like, I can't.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing that God is opening your eyes, like He's taking the veil off, and that's what happens with people. Even when you educate them, sometimes they can't see it because there's a veil. But when the Holy Spirit hits you, there's nothing that you can accept that He's telling you.
I think Marlene's correct with the education part of it. Because what you don't know, you don't know, the horoscope, all that stuff. Once you hear what it's connected to, the yoga, Halloween, then you start to like put it all together.
And you're responsible for it then.
Which means we need to educate the pastors.
Yes.
We should do a special video on the origins of Halloween and see if it could get any traction, right?
We can sacrifice Russ.
And so one video on the origins of Halloween.
I'm against my own sacrification. Okay?
It's not up to you, Russ.
That would be bad.
You got to do it.
Who would run the show?
You got to do it for the show.
We could do one on the origins of Halloween, one on what happens with an abortion, one on the origins of yoga, right? All these unpopular topics. That would be pretty cool to talk about all this stuff.
No, forget about even not doing this, but even to promote what we believe in, Easter or Christmas.
Right.
Yeah,
We don't even have the space now to say what those days are for, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Even the positive side of
Bunny and Santa Claus, and that's it.
Yeah. Well,
It's funny how they use Xmas. Like, why is it not okay to say Christ? You know, you can't say it. You can't say Christmas. You have to say Xmas.
That actually goes back.
The Xmas.
I forget which lineage it has. I want to say Greek.
Xmas, yeah.
X is supposed to be the abbreviation for Christ.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I never knew
The
that.
X with the Ixthus, right? Because the stems from the fish.
I'm
right?
not a Greek
The Jesus
doctor. I
fish?
have no idea.
I believe so.
Oh yeah,
If I'm not wrong.
Oh yeah,
I'm
the
not
Jesus
close.
fish.
The Jesus fish.
Well, you just educated me, Russ.
The Jesus fish.
we're learning together
Well,
today.
commercially, when you do that, they're doing exactly what you're saying.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, they're Xing out Christ. is what it is.
Yeah.
It has-
But it has Christian origins.
Yeah.
It was Christian.
Depends on the
origins.
intent, I suppose.
Well, yeah. I
Depends on the intent.
I think a lot of the holidays have been hijacked by corporate.
Well, now they won't even do that in some places. They'll just say holiday cups, right?
Oh yeah.
Didn't Starbucks have the holiday
Oh,
cups?
hey, would you guys like a holiday tree? Which holiday?
Yeah.
What, is this Christmas or Earth Day? I don't know. It's a tree.
And you know what annoys me? I went to this coffee shop and they have this, it's a big thing with the Phillies. I know the Phillies, everything with that. But you can put on these costumes. You could be a fanatic when you go to like all the games and stuff. But if you do something like that for Jesus, you are a weirdo. Right? It was annoying me lately. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, can you imagine if we all went to
Hand out
church
Jesus
with
cups at
paint
the
on
coffee shop. Jesus coffee or something.
JC.
Might do that, right?
Can you explain that concept to me? What is
Be a
Jesus
viral video.
coffee?
Yeah.
Like a candy cane or something like I don't know, red and white, because the Phillies was red and white, the drink that I got.
Like a foam cross on our finger.
You know what I'm saying? You'd be a fanatic for anything but Jesus in this society. That's how I
I'll
feel.
get a cross on my coffee cup. I don't drink coffee though.
Okay, we'll give you a Mountain Dew. No.
Well, Bella, I've got one final question for you before we leave. You've been so generous with your time. One final question is, are you Italian? Bella sounds like an Italian name.
I visited Italy, but
Yeah.
it's an Italian name, but I'm from India.
Oh, no, you could be honorary Italian American.
There we
We'll bring
go.
you into the
That's
club.
right.
There we go, yes, yes.
Tell everybody one more time where they can find your videos. Your 1 minute of peace. Do it every day.
Okay, it's called Minute with a Master, and I have a website called minutewithamaster.com. Or for a little more elaborate teaching, you can go to bellavictorministries.com.
BellaVictorMinistries.com. Check it out. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's a
Bella.
pleasure.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. So finally, we've got the grand finale of all guests. We've got Susan Loch, owner of WFYL, joining us. Susan, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mike.
And thank you for having us here for the anniversary gathering. What year anniversary is this, Susan?
It's the 10th.
The 10th anniversary. This is a
10th
big one.
anniversary.
Big one, 10th
This is
year.
the big one.
It's amazing. It's unbelievable.
Decade.
And take a moment. We want to take a moment to honor Al Loch.
Yes, we do.
Who is with the Lord, and he is missed deeply by everybody in the WFYL family. And, we're all praying for you as you carry on and continue to do great things with this station.
Thank you, Mike.
So how's it been so far with everybody coming over for the anniversary?
Oh,
Has
it's
it been a great 10 years?
wonderful day. Wonderful. Well, it has. I mean, can't believe it's been 10 years. I think it was in August. I thought, this is 2022. 10 years?
Wow.
Is that even possible? But it is. Yeah.
And you have quite the cast of characters who were part
Yes.
of WFYL, right?
It's been quite an adventure.
All different people that you see coming in, personalities and everything, all from, we've got similar goals but come from different walks of life. Is that fair to say?
Very different. They're very different people. I was mentioning that today. People I would never probably have had an opportunity to meet or know.
And how have you met most of these people?
Through the station.
So people contact you, and then you,
Either coming in.
I know you met you at the Christmas party.
Coming in to be interviewed, or meeting them at meetings of mutual interest, like that prayer breakfast. Marlene was there on Friday. It's just real interesting how the circle grows.
Yeah. Small world, kind of, right? Because you saw Marlene at the prayer breakfast. Now she's over here.
It was so lovely seeing her. I just looked up and I'm like, oh, there's
And the last time we talked was on the air.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then before that, we saw each other at the PA Leadership Conference.
And I didn't recognize you.
I'll
never forget that. I was so embarrassed.
So it was fine. It was perfectly fine.
I think I was talking about how wonderful Marlene was.
Right.
You said,
it's almost
hi,
like
Marlene.
being at your funeral and then you're like over here, people talking about you. Oh, she was a great person. I love
It's
it.
really awkward moment.
Well, had you ever seen her, though?
No, I don't think so.
You just heard her on the air, right?
Yeah. So I
So
just
she
thought that was
wasn't-
so lovely.
You can't expect you to just know what she looks like just from hearing her
I
voice.
was so honored.
I picture you about 6'2". You'd have to be really good at getting. I could hear anybody's voice and know exactly what they look like. Pick them out of a crowd of 5,000 people at PA Leadership Conference.
Well, at least you were saying good things. You know?
That's true. That would have been much worse.
Marlene came over to the booth and she was like, "Where's this Russ, the producer guy? This guy can't get it together."
He's napping.
That's him sleeping over.
And I seen him like 10 times that day. I didn't know it was Russ. I was oh, that's Russ.
Well, you guys were hanging out with Dr. Oz over there, right? Dr. Oz was at the leadership conference. You guys were hanging out with him. That was before the primaries had even been decided, though.
All of the candidates were there.
Oh, wow.
We got to hear everyone.
Yeah,
that was back before the primaries.
And so Doug Mastriano for governor was there as well. Been a little quiet with him, hasn't it been?
Has been, other than the negative ads against
kind of like
him. You know?
we just were just now.
Right?
It's like, hey, Russ is going to insert crickets.
Well, don't you think that it's just that we don't hear because it's not covered?
It's not covered, but it seems like the other side has a whole lot more money.
Exactly.
Or at least they're doing a better job with their money, because I cannot go on YouTube without a Josh Shapiro ad.
Sure.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And some Fetterman ads too, but it can't go on without a Josh Shapiro ad. It's absolutely outrageous. The
disparity.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's true.
Well, we're living in a censored world for sure, as we know.
Is it censorship though, or is that the other side's stepped their game up and they know where to spend their money?
I think it's both, but I do think there's censorship and manipulation. I mean, we've got some strikes against us, and we see what happens in the suppression and on the different platforms. It's interesting to see what's going on with Twitter now that it's not, that it's changed hands.
It's all about who controls it, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Elon has already fact-checked Biden a couple times on some pretty interesting.
I saw
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah, so
I love that. I want to go on record as saying I love that Elon owns Twitter now. Not only,
Me too.
but mainly because he is a troll,
Sure.
and I love that.
Yep. Oh, he is.
Well, that was half the appeal with Trump, though, wasn't it? Don't you think that people like Trump a lot more because he says things that a lot of people will not say, and then when the other side tells him you can't say that, he just doubles down on it.
Shut up and say it.
Well, I just did, and now I'm going to say this.
It just makes people want to do
You
it
keep
more.
telling me I can't say that. I'm going to say it again. I'll say it 10 more times.
That's right.
It's like,
He will
people-
not be intimidated.
He would just verbally punch people in the face.
Well, the word is that they've got indictments coming down after this midterm election.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that'll go somewhere.
Yeah,
Like
we'll
the
see what
collusion
happens.
and the impeachment and the other impeachment. They can't get this guy.
Impeachments are bad.
Impeachments are bad. A waste of time.
Did you folks see the debate between Fetterman and Oz?
Yes.
Because there's one question where they asked Oz about abortion, and his answer was very politician-y, if you ask me. It was sort of like, well, I don't think the federal government should be involved. It should be the local government who's involved.
Okay.
and the woman and the doctor, he almost used like the buzzwords from people who could be on either side. And he didn't really take like a firm position one way or the other than he didn't think the federal government should be passing legislation one way or the other. Liberty, did you have something to say? I know that you said that the Oz campaign texted you. And
They've been texting me all week, and so is Mastriano. I got messages from all different campaigns this week, and so I decide to reply to Dr. Oz campaign. I just said, why didn't he take a firm stance on abortion either way? He just didn't take a firm stance, in my opinion. I didn't see it. He kind of skirted the issue. So I was kind of disappointed in that. They didn't answer and respond, though. So
now, Marlene is somebody who's a pro-life advocate.
Yeah.
In these situations, you have to sometimes just go with the person who would at least vote against codifying Roe v. Wade, because that's something that they are talking about on the pro-abortion side, right? They want federal legislation.
Just think about the other person. I mean, when we think about Fetterman, it's no comparison there.
Sure.
We know that Fetterman wants abortion up until birth. He wants paid for by taxpayers, just everything codified. Like, he is not the person that we want in office. And so if Oz, even though we want people to be more educated and understand, really what you're fighting for when you're fighting for life, because not everybody has that knowledge. But I won't make excuses for him. I think that people should really know. But in this case, him saying that it'll go back to the states is basically what overturning Roe is basically. It's what it is. It's the people
That's true.
having that voice. And at this time, that's so much better than what Fetterman is offering. So and Liberty, I appreciate you. We definitely appreciate your stance on that, because that's exactly where I would be. But given just the efforts that we put in.
Well, the reality is you've got two choices here, right? So on that particular issue, you have to know who's going to be the better candidate for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Susan, what do you think about the race for governor? It looks right now like Shapiro's got this in the bag and Mastriano doesn't have much of a chance. You had the opportunity to see Mastriano at the PA Leadership Conference?
I thought he did fine at the leadership conference, and I hope that there's more support than we're hearing about. I think a good many people are supporting him. I do.
So you think that it's going to be a lot closer than they're saying?
I think so.
I believe
I
so,
hope.
too.
I think so.
Should be.
Wow.
You would hope so at this point, the way things are. But.
I believe it's also how we start to view things as well, because when we speak and say Shapiro's going to win, we can't talk like that, because if he does win, if he does win, it's going to be
people need to think about
not
that.
so great.
Sure.
Right.
And so that's just me just saying that, but that would really hurt my heart if Shapiro actually got into office, because
people just need to think about the Democrat policies,
right?
Yeah.
And do you really want that? Is that what you really want?
Right. I mean, that's what people aren't looking at. They're looking at the personality versus the policies. And they're also thinking that the extreme is more extreme on one end than it is the other. And that's just not the truth. It's just what the media has been prompting people to believe.
Take a ride into Philly and see how it is down there, and see if you want the rest of the state like that. Yeah.
Why is Shapiro linked to Philly?
Well, I mean, if we look at it,
which party is running?
Yeah,
Okay,
right. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Democrats running.
The policies, like Susan was saying.
The Democrat policy.
And the signs you're seeing, like we talked about earlier. I mean, it's just, I walk around down the city and I feel like I'm in some Twilight Zone, with the propaganda.
I was thinking about that too, though. When they say stop racists, you got to get out there and vote. They can't logically mean anything else than vote Republican, right?
I mean, when
Right.
Against the party who wanted slavery.
right.
Vote against the party who thinks so low of you that you couldn't possibly bring an ID to the polls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't some of these policies insulting, Marlene?
It's totally insulting. Like, if people really thought about what they're actually saying when they say these things, it's like you would get it, but people don't think. They just vote Democrat straight down the board if that's the way that they've been voting for all of this time. So.
Is it similar to the abortion issue, like you were saying, that culturally it's rooted there and that's just what you're taught?
Yeah.
It's just ingrained and, it's sort of hard to shake that?
It is. And I attribute that sometimes, like when I think about families, like how deeply rooted in generational things that people are dealing with. Like, when you have bitterness and you have, just people that are just stuck, and just when you think about crime in certain neighborhoods, people will never snitch on somebody. They'll call it snitching, but they'll never tell the police what's going on, even though they know for sure what's going on, but they won't say it because it's just a code, so you get stuck in these little things that families have taught throughout the years. And it's just something that becomes culture that's just so wrong. You have to undo that. And how do you do that? Like, that's a tough thing. I think that, Christ can only do that for people.
Amen.
Like
that's right.
That's how it happened for me, and I don't know how many people are looking to him. So that's
why we're praying for revival and for an awakening, a true awakening of the people.
Do you think that we might see that, Susan?
I do. We're really praying for it.
What would that look like to you? We're going to have tents on the side of the road where people show up and they gather to hear about God and sing songs and everything like that. Because that's what I think of in my head when I hear revival. And they actually had that in Oklahoma while I was out there, and not that old. So
well, there are revival meetings like that, but I'm talking about something bigger than that, really, just to move the Spirit across the whole land, and people's hearts being changed, and people ministering to each other in the grocery store.
Yeah.
When you go to CVS.
I think we saw a little of that, Susan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think we saw a little of that when COVID hit and nobody really knew, what was to come from that. And revival comes out of tragedy. And unfortunately, we don't know what's going to happen in the near future or in the future. But if you're feeling that way, sometimes it does something has to happen like that in order for people to look up.
Does people start to slide back, though, once things sort of settle down? Because like that old story about the guy who's drowning in the ocean, he says, I promise I'll go to church every day. And then the closer he gets to shore, the less he's going to, promising to go to church. Oh, maybe every other day, maybe once in a while. And then once he's saved, he doesn't need God anymore, right? So do you think that happens sometimes? Or that happened this time around?
Take a look at me, okay? So once I actually surrendered my life, there was no turning back. And there was opportunity after opportunity for me to just like give up some things or not to follow Christ because things got hard. But when you love him, when you actually do know him, it's really no turning back from that. So when there's an actual revival, when the Spirit hits you, then, I think there's, going to be a change in the atmosphere.
It's a heart change.
It's a heart change.
It's a heart change, which causes everything else to change then.
Is it hard, though? Do you feel like you get attacked worse the more you try to, live in God's eyes? Susan, I'll ask you first because I know that you've been doing this for a long time now. And you made a lot of sacrifices.
We have a very real enemy. He's after our souls, but God is greater. So there will be always that conflict and that battle. And the attacks do come. That's what Ephesians 6 is all about, putting on the whole armor of God. Every day you need to put it on because it's not us. It's Christ in us. It's his righteousness as our breastplate. It's his helmet of salvation purchased by his blood. It's his belt of truth that we put on every day. It's his shield of faith. They put up those fiery arrows come in and they do harm, And if you let your guard down, they can come in. And then the sword of the Spirit, sharper than any two-edged sword, his word is powerful. It's so powerful. It's important to speak it out loud. And then shoes ready to spread the gospel of peace, the good news. So if we put that on, we're given in his word instruction as to how to walk this life. I'm not saying it's easy. We do have a very formidable enemy. But we know in the end he loses, so that's encouraging.
It kind of drives me nuts, though. Sometimes you hear these pastors, they make it sound like it's all rainbows, though.
It isn't.
If you just come to Jesus, everything's going to be all dandy.
No, just like Marlene said,
be all dandy. You come to Jesus. He wants you to live your best life right now.
But you know what? Sometimes it's our interpretation of what they're saying, because some pastors will teach the process. I know you're talking about Osteen.
Call now. Operators are standing by. Visa, MasterCard.
Yes, right, exactly.
Taking donations.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people can't comprehend the light. So they look at it as judgment, and they look at it like, you're trying to bash them or just say that they're totally wrong and they're never going to be right. But you're just trying to offer the light to them.
Sure.
So that they can come.
Have you found that, though, that since you turned around and you just made that decision, that you've had some rough patches?
Rough patches is not the word.
I feel like Christians got time. I feel like the truth is that being a Christian could be miserable. No?
It's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Not miserable, but you'll definitely have trials and tests. And like Marlene was saying, I've gone through some health issues, and I went to the Bible study, and I remember the teacher was just like, if you're still here going through this, that means that, your heart's really there, because you could be at the lowest low. If you still stay there, then I believe you were truly saved. So, but yeah,
sure, but
my life was so much easier before I got saved.
The realistic part is you're saying, okay, there are all these things that are off limits that you're not going to do, that are considered by most of society to be fun, right? So, and aside from that, you're going to get attacked mercilessly. So what do you say, Ian?
You want some fiery arrows?
And if we're going to be honest, it's a very real conversation
Especially
to have,
now.
But that encounter with Christ is just so much better than any of that.
It's what Marlene said about knowing him. Once you know him and know his love, that changes everything, right?
It
that
does.
changes everything.
What was it for you, Marlene, that made that happen? Like, how did you suddenly have that internal connection and knowing? What was it that?
It was gradual. It was so sanctification. So you're saved immediately, right? When you accept Christ into your heart and believe that he died for your sins, you're automatically saved. But the sanctification piece of it is him working on you. So like Susan said, it's not us, it's him. So Chris, who you are today is not going to be who you are tomorrow, because he's working on you as he works on all of us. Like, none of us are perfect. None of us are ever going to be there because we are not Christ. However, it comes to a point, like for myself, I know that I just began to think of how life was before and say that it's better with him versus not doing the right things or sacrificing for him. And then I saw how when I sacrificed, how he took me to another level. And then I just wanted to sacrifice even more. So I just laid my life down for him.
That's great.
And, now I'm sitting here with I love my children, but it's sometimes lonely being a single woman, doing this path and walking this life on your own. But it's a beautiful thing, just to see how God moves through the people that you're touching every day.
Right. Thank you.
I always tell all my single friends, if you want to meet a good woman, you got to go to church. I've been trying to meet people on Tinder or or I went out, go out to these bars and stuff. It's like you're never gonna meet a quality one. Come on, man.
But I'll have to warn them that just because the people are in church doesn't mean that they're actually filled with the Holy Spirit.
But it's a good start, though, right?
Right.
You're going to get a better pool than a bar.
Much better.
Agreed?
Agreed.
So,
Philly Chris? I'm just
Philly
They
Chris,
do have wine at church. So
wine and crackers.
Right.
So funny.
So what I want to do next is I sort of want to go around the room, and since we do have this election coming up, I want to hear what people believe to be the most important issue to you come in this upcoming election. Let's start with you, Chris.
Good question. I mean, I think at this point it's crazy for me to see what's going on, especially locally and being in Philly. So, I think we need a strong leader, someone like Mastriano in there who's going to stand up for us. And I was really impressed with him during the pandemic when he was so vocal about, what was going on. And I think the listeners, of our program know my feelings on a lot of the nonsense that took place on that. We probably don't need to get into it right now, but I think we just need somebody to, protect our freedoms and our rights and all that stuff. So,
How about you, Susan?
Yeah.
My greatest concern about the upcoming election is the fairness of the election. Voter fraud. I'm very concerned that the
Narfador. Yeah.
That the
Darfador,
issues have not been corrected. I really pray that they will be. I think if it's allowed to be fair, that the outcome will be good.
Sure.
I do. But I'm concerned. I'm really concerned about it.
Yeah, that's a good point, Susan. Yeah, I don't think it's been fixed.
So your main concern is your vote being counted.
Yeah. Well, there's a question right now. I'm not sure if mine was in the 2020 election. So
you were told that it was not, right?
I was told that my name was not in the book and that I had not voted.
Gotcha.
There you go.
And I did I saw my ballot go in.
And you definitely voted, right?
Definitely did, but I have not received an answer.
How did you look into that?
I called voter services, and then I went to 2 different county commissioners meetings. And my question is, the number of signatures in the signature book should be the same as the number of votes cast in any polling place. And that should be reconciled right after any election.
Of course.
Why was that not reconciled? Why has it been 2 years and it's not reconciled? And I don't have an answer yet.
Interesting.
Probably never get one.
How about you, Liberty? What's your most important issue? And do us a favor, turn on your microphone when you talk this time.
Can you hear it?
No, your microphone is not
Just
on.
use this one.
Okay. I think just getting so caught up in politics, I just feel like the real issues, like family, abortion, I'm obviously against that.
You're against family and abortion?
No. No, just it's just so much I see it from my generation and the ones below me, like Gen X, and they're just so far gone in this world that I just don't know how to pull it back. I don't know how to talk to people around me because I'm right in the middle. I'm not Gen X, not Gen Z. I don't know exactly what I am. I'm like a geriatric millennial. That's what they call it. But it's I keep wanting to speak to people around me and I find it so hard. So I go back to my usual, it was so much easier in Oklahoma. Everybody agreed. No. But it was, but yeah, if I have to say it, I just say small business, faith, family, and, against abortion. Those are the things that really matter to me, and free speech, and, whatever candidate's going for, that's what I'm going to go for and try to see through all the fluff. Yeah, but I think a country divided is not going to stand, and we are so divided, and it's, I don't know if I have the solution or anybody here, but it's really bad. But I don't know how to get through to my generation. Very difficult.
It's kind of tough, though, with the whole division issue, because there are certain things that people on the right will not compromise. There are certain things on the left that people on the left will not compromise. For example, I know that everybody in this room will never be willing to compromise on the ability to kill babies, right?
Right.
That's where we draw the line. And, we're not going to find, you can't find common ground on that, can you?
Are you saying we're not in favor of it?
How about you kill half the babies?
Sure thing, Thanos.
Well, and the Second Amendment rights is another thing that we're never going to agree on that. They want to take away the firearms, and we don't want them to take away the firearms. So there's really not common ground to be reached on some of these issues, unfortunately. Yeah. So I don't know. Can you stay united while still disagreeing on issues? I suppose you can, right? The country's stayed around for this long, and we've had disagreements along the way.
Well, now it's just so amplified and polarized too, and then politicized. So the political system on both sides has more power and authority over each mindset.
Some of the issues like what they're doing to the children, the little children.
Oh, it's insane.
It's
evil.
There's no common ground there as far as I'm concerned.
Or with what they're introducing to schools and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. And then, of course, the media twists it. And they tried to really give it to DeSantis on the legislation they put through in Florida based on that, right? Yeah, they made it sound like something that it really wasn't.
He's a good example of the kind of leader we need, those people with courage to stand up against what's wrong, to speak the truth.
Be interesting. I guess to a certain degree, I've had conversations with Democrats about both abortion, about Second Amendment stuff, and it seems like for abortion, for example, a lot of the people that I'm speaking with, they think that late-term stuff is ridiculous, and there are certain things that, we could both agree upon. We're still not there when we get to what we don't agree upon, though. I don't think that either one of us is going to be happy getting to if we just went through what everybody agreed upon. And the same thing with the Second Amendment. Like maybe people will say, oh, well, I don't think all the guns should be taken away, only these kinds of guns. And we're like, no, you can't take those kinds of guns away. And that's the end of the discussion. So what do you think? Well, is this a bad? Marlene's like, I'm really concerned about my taxes.
Well, as an activist, an abortion.
How about give us your second most?
My second most.
Yeah,
I would
why
say
not,
freedom of speech, of course.
Freedom of speech.
Yeah, because that's such a tough thing to not have. I mean, we all have our opinions. We all have our voice. So if you take the freedom of speech away, what is next?
Right, exactly.
It's all attached to that.
And it's coming from areas and angles other than just the government in and of itself. It's coming through private entities too, really, isn't it? Like,
it is.
I mean,
absolutely.
You were just talking about Elon taking over Twitter.
Sure.
So there are people very, very concerned that he's going to allow hate speech and things of that nature and misinformation and fake news and all that stuff. And what have we learned about this fake news nonsense? We learned that, they didn't publish the Hunter Biden laptop story leading up to the election because they had a feeling it was Russian disinformation. And I don't think...
There's still a possibility.
I don't think anybody... I don't think anybody with the intelligence that God gave geese ever thought this thing was Russian disinformation. As a matter of fact, when they started saying that, we were talking about it on the program. I said the only way that thing, how is it possibly Russian disinformation? Because they didn't deny that any of the contents weren't true, right? They didn't come out and say, oh, those are doctored pictures or those are fabricated emails. They didn't say that. They just said Russian disinformation. So without all of that being false, how would it be Russian disinformation? The only thing that I concluded on the show was that the Russians sent Hunter Biden a laptop and a box of crack.
That's all they needed. That's all they needed.
I thought you were going to say Russ sent it to him. I'm like, what's
recipe,
Russ
apparently.
I talked to some really...
But they suppressed it, and now they're admitting that, okay, I guess it wasn't Russian. I guess those pictures and emails were real.
Yeah, sure.
But the damage is done. It's too late.
Exactly.
And that's why even
that's why it's so effective.
Supreme Court jurisprudence, prior restraints have been frowned upon. If you look at cases like dealing with, even with national security, the Pentagon Papers, they've had cases where, these documents were unlawfully obtained from one party and then lawfully obtained by the journalist. ultimately published as a matter of national security. You got to stop them from putting that out there.
Gotcha.
And the court says, no, this is a matter of public concern. Right. You can't do a prior restraint. You can sue them or punish them after the fact for doing something wrong, but you can't suppress the speech.
Gotcha. Right.
Because the answer to bad speech is more good speech.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tirade there.
It's okay. You're the smart person over there. So.
I've done First Amendment cases.
Good.
I'm one of the strange people who I could get calls from the NRA or the ACLU. First Amendment, even though even these organizations that were traditionally liberal, right? When you think of liberal, you think of free speech. These hippies, hey man, don't tell us what we can't say. We have a right to speak freely. Yeah. But today it's like the total opposite, right? Yeah. They want us to have a book filled with words that we're allowed to use, and then this other book filled with words that we're not allowed to use. And then once we know which words we're not allowed to use, burn that book because those words shouldn't even be on paper.
Right. But yet they're burning everything instead.
Yeah.
Like, burn seems to be like the word.
My favorite is when you have a liberal who somebody posted something about something on TikTok, and I think they used the term illegal aliens, and she was like, all about it. She's like, I'm not racist. This is horrible. And then all the liberals went after her for using the term illegal aliens and said, no, it's undocumented. So she was like on their side. They attacked her like crazy. It's like, you just can't get it right. It's always changing.
What makes them legal? Their documents. So you call them illegal. Hello, it's the same thing.
And they're playing around with the language.
All these gang members in Philly are getting caught with their undocumented firearms.
Yeah, well, they're undocumented.
That's all.
All they had to do was document.
They identify as undocumented.
Right.
And I guess the latest is that we're all extremists. Like, we are extreme.
Oh, yeah. You're a white supremacist.
I'm a white supremacist.
Total racist.
I've been called, I'm not black anymore, so they say. They take away my black card.
If you didn't vote for
Not
Biden.
even just Biden. It's so many people that just, no longer black. But they can't take that away. God gave it to me, so I'm a black girl.
What is wrong with people? Are sick, aren't they?
Totally.
People are sick.
But that's why you have to know your identity. God gave me this identity, and I'm sure that for other people they might be upset if someone says that, but that nobody can ever take that away from me. I don't have to have just everything to look black or everything to my personality, whoever I am. Like, I am who I am. God made me black, and if I was white, I'd be happy for that. I'm happy because I'm black. And everybody else can go, like, whatever it is, like, you guys can get away from me.
What's their motivation when they say that, though, right? Because they're saying, I either want to hurt her feelings or for her to come to my side. So it's either you come to my side or I'm going to try to hurt your feelings the best as I can. Is that it?
That's
Is that the motivation?
They want everybody to conform, and I'll never be that. As long as I'm on this earth, I'm going to be in line with Christ. And conformity for the other side, that's just not going to be a part of who I am. So
that is,
they can forget about it. I'll be whoever you call me, but God says that I am who I am.
Yeah, that's good.
That's very true about the control part, though. Because I was talking to somebody after the last election, and I saw how things were in the streets and everything like that. And I said, is it time for this country to maybe just split up amicably? Let's just shake hands and say, you know what, dude, we had a good run. but this just ain't going to work out. Yeah. You go your separate way.
Go to California.
We'll go our separate ways. It'll be cool. No hard feelings.
Yeah.
We'll live our way. You live your way. And I told my buddy about that. And he's a constable. And he said, he's been around a few years. He knows his stuff. He said, the left will never go for that. Because what you're missing is, on the right, we want to be left alone.
Yes.
But the left wants control. And until they have their foot on our neck, they're not going to be happy. They're not going to let us go our separate ways because they want to control. It's all about control.
Yeah. But here's the thing.
I had that light bulb moment. I said, 100% correct.
But the thing, like, I don't know, Russ, if you were about to say that. I'm just going to let you say what you were going to say.
Okay. Here's the thing. If we do split, the right is the side with the guns. They can try as they might to control us. But we have the guns.
The reason they're trying
the documented guns.
The documented.
Yeah.
I imagine that's not what you were going to say, Marlene.
No, but that's a good one. What was I going to say? I just lost it. But is there a right and a left?
Is there a right and a left?
Like, do you really think that, like, honestly, because I just think that we are divided by design.
It's fragmented even more, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, it's tribalized.
She sounds like they're doing this on purpose.
Right.
man.
No, thanks for saying it, Marlene.
I don't know. I just don't. I don't believe that we're so much divided as we think. I think that it's okay. Somebody just drop something down so that we can be divided. But
Right.
That's really Chris's category right there.
Yeah.
Elaborate on it. I mean, this is your wheelhouse.
No, I agree with everything she's saying.
You try to tell me about this stuff when I don't want to hear it.
Right. Well, I think it's being highly manipulated, and it's a small percentage of people who would be radical right or left, right? But they're making it more of a topic of discussion. Right. Yeah, there you go.
Do you know about that? Russ made a Venn diagram.
Oh, that's right.
The right,
the Venn
and the
diagram.
left, and the part in the middle, which he called the butt crack. Those were the extremes of each party.
There's two sides. They meet in the middle.
Right.
All the people in the middle are the ones who are to blame.
10 years ago, did you think you'd have some knucklehead lawyer in your house talking about butt crack?
I'm pretty sure she hoped that would never happen.
That's exactly what I
Not in my
envisioned.
wildest imagination.
Right. And here we are.
I think there are sides. Like if you say you're a liberal versus Republican, I can kind of guess your main issues, how you vote, but there's always like people who don't fit in there, kind of like the butt crack.
Yeah, I try to look at each issue individually and make a decision based on each issue. I think it would be preposterous for somebody to, say, well, I'm a Republican, so what do you guys believe in? Sure, I believe in that. And so you got to look at each individual issue, and I do disagree with Republicans on certain things, but the majority of the time, I feel they better represent my interests. And
well, I think when Reagan made an interesting point in one of his speeches, I forget the actual wording right now, but he basically said that we would definitely all come together, once the external outside force, extraterrestrial, whatever you want to call it, happen to show up. We're going to remember we're all human pretty quick,
And so do you think that that's going to happen eventually?
No.
No?
Well, maybe the narrative will be put out there. We'll see.
Who said no?
Did you say extraterrestrial? Maybe I missed
Aliens,
the other part.
Yeah.
Not illegal aliens, just aliens.
Right. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it could be something that's...
Well, maybe a narrative like that.
Right,
Too. Could be
yeah.
a narrative.
If they tell people that this is what's happening.
Right.
I think, gosh, there's so much. But I know that biblically they say that there is going to be something, like even if they were to create like a hologram of something, like something of that nature, like that might sway people.
Project Bluebeam.
It's already happened.
Hologram with Walt Disney.
You can look it up. Project Bluebeam. Yeah.
What is that?
I'll look
what you're
that
talking
up.
about. Yeah.
You and Marlene are on.
The question is, if we divide, where is Philly Chris going to go?
Where am I going to go? I
just, like,
don't know.
stuff
It's a good
them.
question. If we what? If we divide?
If we divide left
I
and
feel
right,
like
where
he
you
would.
go?
I feel like he would go with the left just to like get videos and talk to them and stuff. He'd be like interviewing them. He like can't help himself. He can't help himself.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's like, let me interview these people. So how
Right.
long you been living on the left side?
I just wish we could come together, though, but it seems almost too late. I mean, I'm losing.
You think
hope
it's
of
on
that.
purpose?
I mean, I think people are being highly manipulated and they're allowing it to happen themselves. I mean, we have all the social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram.
Have you
whatever,
been manipulated?
You know.
Have you been?
I'm sure I
manipulated?
have. I think we all are. To
But
some
who do you think's
degree.
doing it? Who do you think's doing it?
I think every input that we take in has the potential to interfere with our,
Psyche.
Our psyche and our perspective and our, every one of us is an individual point of consciousness. So everything we take in, we perceive to be, is that individual experience that yields our view or perspective on reality in the world and religion or the people around us. So I think that we all are impacted, positively and negatively, but it's really on how you process it. I think you really have to question everything, you see, in my opinion.
Anything you say that's hateful, that's never going to be good. It's never going to lead people to Christ. So that's like, a lot of learning to do on Kanye's part and probably Elon. But God will use people, I will say. Elon is a little tricky with the whole chip stuff, but God will use anybody. And so if we can have more free speech on Twitter, that could be a good thing. Well, I don't know. I mean, I was curious what everybody here thought about Elon, because he's very controversial, and now that he owns Twitter, and he's saying like Twitter is like basically the town square. Everybody gets their thoughts out. So what does everybody think? And
it's weird because like you would agree with him on that. And, hey, that's cool, but he starts talking about putting chips in people's brains. Like, oh wait, let's pump the brakes on that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So it's gosh. So we'll see. That's all I can say is that we'll see eventually. You can appreciate some things about people and then not appreciate other things.
Sure.
But when it comes down to a chip,
that's different ballgame, right?
But we're talking about Elon Musk, who is like very, very intelligent, very, so, and then he never said that he was a Christian. Did he ever say that?
No, he actually, he had an interview with the Babylon Bee, and they were trying to get him to accept Jesus. And he said something that was not, I think he said he always thought it sounded fun or something like that. And they said, okay, we'll take that as you accepted Jesus. But it was really, they kind of glossed over it.
I just think that just like they say in the Bible, even the elect will be deceived. And so in my heart, I try not to like grasp on to everything, even though I can appreciate what Kanye's saying. There's certain things that you appreciate about certain people, but then grasping on with your heart, it's almost like, okay, well, I really don't know for sure that this person
always
is not
question.
out to deceive.
So you don't think that either one of them
try
are
the
the
Spirit by the Spirit.
You don't think either one of them are the Antichrist?
We don't know.
We don't know. Anybody who claims that.
I always suspected it was the planter's peanut. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you're right on that.
How about you, Susan?
No comment.
No comment.
Susan's very smart.
I haven't convinced you that it's the planter's peanut. All right, Susan, I'm going to let you close this out. If you've got any closing words for our discussion, we'll get out of your hair. But we appreciate you having us for the anniversary special here. Any parting words you have for our listeners and everything in this momentous occasion?
Oh, it's been wonderful to be here with you and to be with all the people who came today and to just focus on God's faithfulness, just remembering God's faithfulness in this past 10 years. It's been really amazing. Just give him all the praise and all the glory.
And thank you for giving us this platform
thank you so much.
that we've had for these last few years. It's been a lot of fun. And I know our loyal listeners and the Mike G in the Morning and WFYL family certainly appreciate everything that you do, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's all the time we've got for today. Stick around for We the People, The Constitution Matters. Pastor David Whitney, Professor Philadelphia. I'll be joining as your legal analyst. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.